And the way we're going to get into this hour number 2, we're going to start with all the latest BioWars and ViroHealth updates posted up as toxicity and impurities. And again, I'm now losing track of just how long it's been. I suppose we're now over 3 months since the start of this Gulf oil spill, this catastrophic catalyzing event. And we've covered most of the ins and outs. We haven't gone into great depth on any of these stories over the last 3 months, but again, I've all put it down, laid it out. The flashbacks are all there. We'll start off with digitaljournal.com. Watchdog says EPA covering up toxicity of Gulf oil dispersants. Hugh Kaufman, senior policy analyst at the Office of Solid Waste and Emergency Response at the EPA, says the EPA is covering up the toxic effects of the dispersant used to help combat the oil spill. Kaufman has never shirked from going public when he's found the EPA to be in the wrong, something that has made his career with the EPA rocky at times. Kaufman has been ringing the alarm bell over the Deepwater Horizon oil spill since it began. On Tuesday, he told Democracy Now!, and this would be a different Kaufman talking to Democracy Now!, not the Frederick Kaufman that talked to Democracy Now! About the food bubble that we cover on foodworldorder.com. This would be Hugh Kaufman talking about the EPA covering up Corexit. In the exclusive interview, Kaufman noted that the EPA is covering up the toxic effects of the dispersant used to help combat the oil spill, as well as misleading the public and the government. British Petroleum had tried to hide the true magnitude of the spill by using dispersants, while noting that BP couldn't hide the spill any longer due to having to make its live underwater camera available to the public. Kaufman said the use of dispersants has not slowed. And unfortunately, dolphins hemorrhaging is just the top of the list here. But Kaufman says ultimately, follow the money. Larry Fink, BlackRock, British Petroleum, Goldman Sachs, Corexit, EPA. Remember, the EPA told folks that the air was safe to breathe at ground zero. On down the list of Gulf oil updates from WDSU.com. People are getting sick, worker says. And again, just like 9/11, just like Katrina, just like our, again, catalyzing catastrophic events of the last decade that are ultimately used, because again, our misleaders say never let a crisis go wasted, being used to further along the agenda of their funders and handlers, and they're the front people. We've heard from Matt Simmons before. Of course, he is a CFR-connected oily insider. He was the one talking about preparations being made for mass evacuations, which has gone viral in the alternative media. But again, we always have to watch what we put out there and what we maybe trumpet. That again, we've said martial law probably isn't coming tomorrow. It's incrementalism. But CFR's Matt Simmons says we have now killed the Gulf. I guess we can tag that along with some other greatest hits like Richard Clark saying your government failed you. But how about this? BP posts photoshopped photo of their crisis command center. That's from americablog.com, and we saw more than one instance of that, I believe. And just more connections between seeing the way things have rolled out between things like Katrina and 9/11. You had the forewarnings, you had the whistleblowers, you had people saying the standard operating procedures weren't being followed, the routine protections were, for some reason, stripped away at the crucial moments. There were drills and exercises going on surrounding the events. There were massive stock market put options, short sells on all the companies involved in all these kind of events. And then you see the sometimes, I guess, fortunately, ham-fisted cover-up, which cover-up proves the crime. More no-show witnesses in oil rig explosion probe. So again, let's glance back to Google News, where we noted just over an hour ago, the story has now made it, fortunately filtered its way, bubbled its way, if you will, like a tar ball to the top of Google News from the New York Times. Oil rig alarm was not fully turned on. Alarms detectors disabled so top rig officials could sleep, reports the Los Angeles Times. Do you see the connections? So now AllGov is reporting on these no-show witnesses in the Gulf probe. I'm sure, unfortunately, as we'll get into it, we'll see folks be suicided, disappeared, convenient plane crashes, and the like. But let's hop across the pond, my friends, to see BP awarded massive Iraq oil contracts thanks to Gordon New World Order Brown, who, of course, he's now the old boss. The UK's met the new boss. More on that from activistpost.com. And we start to go around the world. Another major oil spill after pipeline explosions in China. Again, from digitaljournal.com. But that's not all going on in China. 700 plus dead in floods. 5.8 earthquake shakes Iran. 3.6 earthquake shook the District of Criminals area, including all the surrounding states. Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. And it gets even uglier. This story sources to the New York Times, but Cryptagon.com gives you all the supplemental, subtextual, contextual information to show that, again, all these stories aren't exclusive to these things that we're talking about. We can put it all together, and again, that's what a free and open web has let us do. We can put these things together and see the malfeasance. We can see the repeated practices from our misleaders, who, again, cause the problem to give us the solution, posing as our saviors. Columbia University Brain Imaging Center routinely injected mental patients with drugs that contained potentially dangerous impurities. So just as we saw tainted swine flu being connected to Baxter and all the other pharmaceutical connections, such as this next one from naturalnews.com. 90% of the scientists backing Avandia, that would be this latest controversial happy pill that will fix everything from the pharmaceutical industrial complex. 90% of the scientists who back Avandia have financial ties to drug companies. Surprise, surprise. From bioprepwatch.com, the Department of Homeland Stupidity has announced $1.8 billion in grants that will go to fight, oh goodness, they call it CBRN. That's chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and even, I believe, some explosives. And they're setting these things up all around the country. We've seen other response centers being set up. I believe we'll see more of that just a little bit later in this episode. But our last note on BioWars and EnviroHealth: toxicity and impurities. Pain pill abuse up 400% in the last decade. So as we noted, we've lost 46,000 dairy farms in the last decade. We've had a 400% increase in people using psychotropic drugs provided by the pharmaceutical industrial complexes who connect back to, hell, Nazi Germany. Bayer, Zyklon B, IG Farben. It's all connected.